Thank you for joining us for Capital City News. It's been 1 year since the COVID-19 pandemic arrived in Utah. As the Utah Department of Health continues to distribute vaccines in phases, please be reminded to help our community stay safe by following the CDC guidelines. This March, we also celebrate Women's History Month. And on our episode this week, we hear from Laura Briefer, the director of the city's Department of Public Utilities, about her role as the first woman to lead the department. And our History Minute is about Arlene Dalton and her claim to fame as the Story Princess. Let's get started with our legislative update and look back.
At its March 2nd meeting, the City Council received a presentation from the Racial Equity and Policing Commission with their first set of recommendations, received updates about local emergencies, COVID-19, those experiencing homelessness, and more, and held formal public meetings on 5 items. To learn more, visit slc.gov/council.
Tonight we're gathering as a capital city, but also as a nation, to remember the victims and the survivors of the COVID-19 pandemic.
On this day, we grieve in public for those who cannot be here, and for those who cannot express their sorrow or be comforted.
There are too many empty seats at our kitchen tables. There's too many phone numbers that now go unanswered. There's too many beloved traditions that will never be the same. And my heart will continue to go out to those who have experienced the tremendous loss even after it is over.
Meet Salt Lake City's first ever innovation team. A virtual panel discussion and Q&A with Mayor Mendenhall was held to introduce the new team, who will be working to modernize city processes and systems. The group's first major undertaking will be an overhaul of the city's existing financial, human resources, and payroll systems. Major priorities also include the mayor's digital equity efforts, strengthening the city's community partnerships, public Wi-Fi in public spaces, and more. To learn more and stay connected with this team, visit slc.gov/IMS. Throughout the month of March, Salt Lake City celebrates Women's History Month. Laura Briefer, director of the city's Department of Public Utilities, talks about what it was like for her to be the first woman to lead the department and where we are today. You are actually the first woman who has ever led the Public Utilities Department. Can you talk a little bit about why that took so long and how your journey has led you there?
The Public Utilities Department of Salt Lake City is actually about 170 years old. I believe it actually predated the formation of Salt Lake City government. And because water was one of the first things that our community needed when we settled this area. And, there haven't been that many directors of this department over time. It's typically our directors have stayed for a long time, and that's because the institutional knowledge and technical expertise is so important for this department. I was so fortunate. Our previous director, Jeff Niermeyer, really mentored me, and I think really helped me feel like I was ready for this role. He believed in my skills even when I didn't, and I'm always so grateful for him for his mentorship. And I think he was very open to diversity and inclusion in this department as well.
What are you doing right now in your department to make sure that another 100+ years doesn't go by, before a woman takes the helm again?
Well, succession planning is critically important for a department like ours, and to provide the ongoing services that we do provide. And we have definitely increased the women in leadership in this department over the last few years. I've been the director since 2016, and we have a marked increase of women in leadership positions in our department. Our engineering team, our administrative team, our public engagement team. We have a wonderful team of men and women, but we have definitely increased the women in our department, and I think that's really benefited all of us.
And Laura, you do talk about these women leaders in your department, and And what can you tell me a little bit about them and what are some of the efforts that they're leading right now?
Wow, the efforts that the women in my department are leading right now are quite phenomenal. Um, I mentioned public engagement. We have a wonderful team led by Holly Mullen, who has really created a process and system in our department that we didn't have before. She really created public engagement in a new way from the ground up for our department, which has been so important. Marion Rice, who had served as our water quality and treatment administrator, which is a huge responsibility. She was just promoted to be one of my deputy directors. I now have 2 deputy directors. And she is still charged with water quality and treatment, but also is taking a lead in equity and inclusion, as well as our street lighting utility, among other things. And I'm very excited about that. Another example, Michelle Berry. She is our PhD process engineer, and she is leading up on the rebuild of some of our water treatment plants, some of our aging water infrastructure, which is going to be critically important over the next few years, and also quite complicated technically. And then we have Tamara Prue, who is our water resources manager, and she is tasked with making sure that we use our water wisely, that we maintain all of our water rights. So there's definitely a lot of legal and technical expertise in that. And then we've also hired Holly Lopez, who is the first ever sustainability manager for our department. And she is tasked with preparing and implementing a long-term sustainability plan that delivers on climate change issues, energy, and those types of things. So the women in my department are just so innovative, and they are really they're rocking it.
Young women that are looking to get into the profession of public utilities, but also just leadership positions, right? To move up into those spaces. It's one thing, to have just a seat at the table, but also to have a voice at the table. Can you talk a little bit about, what advice do you have for young women wanting to get into this profession?
Yeah. Well, I think one key component is never stop doubting yourself. Another is passion. Go into a field that you feel passionate about and do work that is meaningful to you. Another one is mentorship. There are amazing people out there who are just incredible mentors, and I've been a beneficiary of that. I mentioned Jeff Niermeyer, our former director, but there are also many women, many of my peers, and they've been incredible mentors and sounding boards. It really isn't something that you do by yourself. It definitely takes a team, and that's probably true for anybody. But I think for women entering into leadership, we face certain challenges that having those resources available is very important for us.
Where can people go to get more information and stay connected?
Our website is a really great place for people to go for more information and stay connected. And my email address is right there too. And I'm always happy to hear from anyone who's interested in our department. So that is a great place. I'm also on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and would love to hear from you there as well.
And now it's time for History Minute.
Born in 1915 in Brigham City, Utah, Aline Dalton, née Olson, ended up in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah to get her degree in journalism and child psychology, with aims to become a teacher. After she married, she began a nursery school, and this changed the trajectory of her life. She began work on picture books and song lyrics to entertain the children, and this led to going onto KSL Radio to tell stories as the Story Princess. This lasted a few years until 1949, when KSL TV put her on the air and made her a local celebrity. Dalton played the role of the Story Princess for many years and gained national fame, reading stories to children dressed in a fairy princess outfit. She even starred in the first nationally televised 90-minute spectacular for children. She wrote many books and sold records of her story recordings. She was in demand for personal appearances across the state as well, and she even appeared as the story princess and as the voice of other characters on the Howdy Doody show. Eventually, with the money from her fame and the royalties from Story Princess projects, she and her husband moved to New Jersey. She passed away in 1986 at the age of 71.
That's it for another episode of Capital City News. Thank you for joining us. To stay connected with us on all things happening with city government and COVID-19 updates, you can visit slc.gov or follow us at slc.gov on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and we're on Reddit. Thank you so much for joining us. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.